Hey guys, thanks for coming back. Joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. Glad to have you back. So today's episode, we'd done an episode a few weeks ago on Stoicism, and I'm a big proponent of, in general, Stoicism. I'm no expert. I'm not the one to teach it to anybody, but the concepts of Stoicism, focusing on things in your control, detaching from your emotions, and making logical, rational choices and trying to understand the world, not worrying about things you don't have control over, kind of letting those things go and focusing on what is truly within your sphere of influence. Um, it makes a lot of sense to me. And so it's something that I try to keep front of mind. And I'm not always perfect at it in any way, shape, or form. But it's something that I try to focus on and incorporate more into my life and get better at as I get older and kind of move through the world. So, Marcus Aurelius is one of the more prominent practicers of Stoicism. And we largely have his thoughts and his feelings on things from his journal. For those that don't know, Marcus Aurelius was actually a Roman emperor back in was like 161 to 180 AD, if I remember right. So, like, at one point, he was one of the most powerful people in the world. And he's the antithesis of absolute power corrupts absolutely. He tried to live a life that was fair, was just, was rational, was compassionate. Um, so a lot of good qualities there. And this is someone that could have had and done anything they wanted, and this is the way they chose to live their life. I think there's something to be said for that. So today we're just going to go over and talk briefly about five quotes or philosophies from him, from his writings, um, and kind of talk about how we think about those things and how they might apply to our everyday life to make us better. So, with that said, let's just dive into it. So, the first one is you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. I think that in the basicness of that quote is where it gets its most power. So when you think about what you actually have control over, you don't have control over a lot of the external world. I was driving early this morning. I was out heading to go to a workout, and a guy completely ran a red light. I mean, he was after 3 seconds after the light had changed, he went through the intersection about 50 miles an hour. Fortunately, the guy in front of me in the car coming the other way saw him coming and had not gone yet. But like that's a situation that could have gotten very bad very quickly, and you don't have control over it. Fortunately, these folks saw it and didn't go, so it was a non-event. But something like that can happen at any time. And I think that's one of the most important things to think about. What do you have actual control over? What can you affect by yourself? And it's really how you think. It's really how you react to situations. One of my favorite. It's a joke. It's a story, whatever you want to call it. But two little boys have the same birthday, and on their birthday, they're led into this room, and in the room is two huge piles of horseshit. One boy starts crying, "Oh, it's my birthday present? This is terrible. I can't believe I'm getting screwed like this on my birthday." The second boy goes over and furiously starts digging in the pile of horseshit. And the folks that are running the show say, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he said, "Hey, with all that horseshit, there's got to be a pony in there somewhere." I think that's a great example of power over your mind, not outside events. I was unceremoniously fired from a position one time. Um, I can't get into a lot of details because there was a settlement made after the fact. But the day I got fired, I went home and told my wife, I said, "Hey, this is going to be one of the best days of our life because it kind of changed the way we thought about a corporate world, W 2 world. That, it seems like your job is safe and stable. It's not. I was the number three guy at that company, and I wouldn't do some things the number two guy wanted me to do because I thought they were unethical and borderline illegal, and I was fired for it. So It just underscored you have a choice over how you do things. You have a choice in how you think about things, and we're just fine. This is 10 years ago, long time ago, but how you think, not outside events, is what you have control over. You can control your life if you have that thought process. So I thought it was a good quote, and I thought it was worth bringing up and kind of talking through with the group. So number two, it's silly to try to escape other people's faults. They are inescapable. Just try to escape your own. So this is another version of, don't worry about your neighbor's garden, tend to your own garden, or, take care of your own backyard, whatever the case may be. Um, you don't, you can't get away from people that judge, people that are snarky, people that are rude. They're going to happen. You absolutely have control over how you react to them. I was on a plane a couple weeks ago, and when we landed, a woman with her young son, probably 8, 9 years old, um, stands up as soon as we hit the gate and decides she's going to try to make a beeline for the front instead of waiting her turn like everybody else. So I have 5 screws in my left knee. So whenever I fly, I have to stand up and kind of get the oil flowing again, and so that my leg works right. But I stood up, and she's behind me and says, "Excuse me, can I get by?" And I said, "No, you can't." And she said, "Well, you're rude." And I said, "Well, that's one way to see it." I said, "You can wait your turn like everybody else does." And she said, "Well, you don't have to be an asshole about it." And I said, well, "That's your opinion. Like, you can think I'm an asshole. That's fine." I was non-reactive and didn't get in an argument with her. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't wind up on YouTube in a viral video. But I have control over how I react to that situation. She doesn't bother me any. I'm not going to give into her demands and let her be selfish. But I also don't need to let it affect me. It doesn't need to change the way I think or feel about a situation. And I have a temper, probably a hotter temper and a quicker temper than most people do. But I've learned over the years to control it because usually when I lose my temper, I say or do something that causes me more problems than it solves. It has its place every once in a while. It's worth throwing a fit to prove a point or to get what you want, but it almost never works the way you think it's going to. And so that's one of my faults that I've worked on a lot over the years. And don't worry about other people's faults. Don't worry about how they react. Think about you. Think about yourself, and you have control over that. And it's a great way to approach things. You'll be shocked how freeing it is to just quit worrying about all that stuff. It just goes away. It's not your issue. You don't have to deal with it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to react to it. So don't. So yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. Number three, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. So it's a different way of saying what we just talked about. If you are letting something external outside of your control impact your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your attitude, your behavior, that's on you. You have control over it. That's on you. You have the power to revoke that at any moment. You hear a lot about people who deal with tough experiences. They're the victims of crime. They lose a loved one. They have terrible things happen in their life. And not until they forgive, instead of holding a grudge and holding in all that kind of vitriol and bile, they forgive. And I don't mean forget. And I don't mean, hey, you're off the hook and I don't care anymore. But you don't let it consume you. You don't let it impact how you think and feel. It's not until then that things get better and they start to move on with their life. So it's very important that however you're thinking about things, it's not nearly as bad as you think. I used to call him a guy, and he was a great guy. I liked him a lot. He was a huge LSU football fan, and I called on him for work, and the first 15 minutes of every meeting they did, you had to talk about LSU football. Like you weren't allowed to talk about business at all. You talked about LSU football. Great guy. I knew his brother too. They were just actually I knew two of his brother and two of his cousins, and they're just a great family. It was fun to be around. And they had a very similar outlook. Someone came into his office during one of our meetings, and was complaining about something. And he said to him, you know, you could have been born in Afghanistan, and right now you could be looking for a cave or diving under a rock because there was a drone coming over the hill, and it was firing a missile that was going to kill you. You're here in a great place with a great job. You work with great people. Get out of my office and quit complaining. Go live your life. And I just chuckled. And I thought it was such a great way to approach things and a great way to think about things because the person's problem was trivial and menial. It wasn't like someone was holding up the store at gunpoint. It wasn't like, three of the freezer cases were down and all the product was going to go bad. They were bitching about something. He told them to quit bitching and think about how good they had it. It was such a good way to think about it. So that was his way of saying you can revoke your feelings or revoke the fact that you're giving this thing power and control over your approach at any time, and that's up to you to change that mindset. So I loved it, never forgot it. Number 4, you always own the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control. These things are not asking to be judged by you. Leave them alone. I think in the world we live in now, with so much social media and so many reactions to everything, um, I think people forget this. I say this a lot about like answering questions. Unless you're like in a quarter deposition or something, you're under no obligation to answer questions. So don't. One of the quotes that we talk about a lot, I love it. It's from James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. And he has a newsletter, a weekly newsletter, and I'm a subscriber to it. And I think he does great stuff. In one of his newsletters, he said, before you speak, ask yourself these 3 questions. Does this need to be said? Does this need to be said by me? And does this need to be said by me right now? And unless you can answer yes to all 3 of those questions, you don't need to say what you're going to say. Keep your mouth shut. I think it's brilliant. And it's exactly what he's talking about here. You're not obligated to have an opinion just because someone does something that others might think is bad or that you might take offense to. You're not required to. You're not required to react to it. You're not required to respond to it. You're not required to consider it. You're not required to have an opinion on it. So don't do it. You always have the option of just saying, whatever, I don't care. I do that a lot. And it's really shocking to people when you do it because the expectation is that you will have an opinion, that you'll weigh in, that you'll raise a fuss, you'll, join in the lamenting of whatever is going on. And generally, you wind up in a much worse position and feel worse about things than if you hadn't. And, I think it's just a great approach. I think it's just a great way to think about things. Leave them alone. Just forget it. Let it roll off your back. It's really that simple. So take some time and training if you haven't done it before, if it's something you struggle with. And something I've worked on for years. Looking when I was in kindergarten, you didn't get A's and B's and C's. You got whatever, excellent or needs improvement. And all my stuff was excellent. I've always been a good student and blah, 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 except demonstrate self-control. That was needs improvement from Mrs. Newton, who has since passed away, but she was my kindergarten teacher. And she was right. I did not demonstrate good self-control. It's something is a natural flaw of mine. It's something that I worked on over the years. I'm way better at it now than I've ever been. I still lose control sometimes, but you don't have to. You don't have to get worked up over things. Talk yourself off the ledge, calm yourself down, get some perspective, and just move on. It's really that simple. And then the fifth quote, time is like a river made up of the events which happen, and a violent stream. For as soon as things has been seen, it is carried away, and another comes in its place, and this will be carried away too. And it's such a good way to think about things. So, the Native Americans always said the river in front of you only exists once because as water flows, it moves rocks, it moves silt, it changes the scope of the river. There's more water here than there was there. It's constantly changing. So the river is never the same. And when you think about time as a river, your life is never the same. You have experiences. Those experiences happen. New experiences come down the road. Those happen. And it kind of keeps going. And when you think about how different your life is now than it was 5 years from now, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Very, very different. I think back to my wife and I recently celebrated our 31st anniversary, and think back to how our life was when we met, and when we got engaged, and when we got married, and when we had our first son, and when we had our second son, when we had our third son, and when we moved across the country, and when we moved different places for work. And even before that, I went through college on a baseball scholarship, and I think back, I watch baseball now and think, I don't remember being that good at that sport, but I played at that level, so I had to have been. But it was like a lifetime ago. My life is so different now, and baseball was the world to me. Worked out 6 days a week, and I ran, and I did all my dry land work and all my off season work, and studied hitters and learned new pitches and all those things. They were so important to me. My world revolved around it for so long, and it just seems so long ago. So my mom, I think she said it in a great way too, a very similar concept. She said, everything changes. So if it's good, enjoy it because it's going to change. And if it's bad, fight through it because it's going to change. That's the one thing you can count on is things won't stay the same. And I think it's a great way to look at it. So, I've been fortunate to be in a great relationship and have a great family for, the relationship for 30 plus years, the family for 20 plus years, 25 plus years. And it's awesome. And it's different. It's very different now having adult kids that have their own careers, have their own problems, have their own hopes and dreams, and are pursuing those hopes and dreams. My life's very different than it was even 5 years ago. And it's awesome. Like I love the new experiences and I love the new things I've learned from the things that have happened, and I've hopefully gotten better as a person because of those things. But it's not all rainbows and unicorns either. We've had a lot of tough stuff happen to us, and we fought through it, and we're still standing, and we're still together, and I think that's the most important part. So it's so easy to get caught up in the minutia of the day and how important things seem when they happen or when you're in the middle of them. But like we talk about, just remember 100 years from now, we'll all be dead. None of this will matter. No one will remember it. It's insignificant. All of us die. The bell's going to ring for all of us at some point. Quit getting worked up over little things. Quit getting worked up over stuff that will go away, that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It's a great way to think. Now, that doesn't mean you just, abdicate and do whatever you want and live a life of hedonism and, be financially responsible. You still got to plan. You still got to be ready for the reality that you'll probably be around a while. But live every day like it's your last, just get after it. Don't let fear or intimidation or uncertainty stop you from doing things. Get out there and live your life, control your emotions, and deal with things in a productive way. And you're going to be so happy that you did it. And you'll wind up in a great spot with those around you that care about you. You'll drag them up with you if you do those things because those things have a way of rubbing off on people. So that's it for today, guys. That's our episode. Hope you found that useful, kind of a daily dose of thinking a different way and thinking about how you process the world and how you react to things. I think it's a great lesson, and I think it's something that I try to keep front of mind every day, and I hope you do too. So, all right, guys, don't forget to go over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. Content on there, all our podcast episodes are on there, and you can sign up for our newsletter on there, and links to our social media accounts are on there as well. So, thanks again for joining us. You guys have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.